It was the exact line from A Wolf of Wall Street. I said, "You show me your pay stub for that." I said, "And I will go put it in my resume right now." And he
Yeah,
pulled it
yeah.
up on his phone, and I said, "Hold on, I need to go borrow the company man's Wi-Fi and put in my application." And that's how I got into remedial wireline.
Welcome to Local Energy. My name is Peter Brecht. I'm here with my co-host Wade Spear, and today our guest is Dale Poserow. Dale, how's it going? What's new and exciting in your world?
Not bad, not bad. Wrapping up the first year of really getting this division for Expro off the ground. That's been my primary focus this year. So it's been a struggle at times, but we're wrapping it up, and we had I think a promising start considering it's a first year. Every first year of a business is always rough, whether it's established and you're starting a new division or you're starting it from the ground up. But I think we finished on a pretty solid note for this year, so it's not too bad.
What does Expro do? I mean, maybe this is common knowledge, but I'm curious. What does your company do?
Well, so Expro as a whole does like everything is the short answer. We do all kinds of stuff. I don't want to shoot myself in the foot here and have my corporate coming over my head, but we're not huge domestically. We're probably like a mid-sized company domestically. We have very large international operations. We operate all over the world. Our headquarters are over in the UK. We have operations. I've lost track of how many different countries I've seen in away emails that different staff members are, doing trainings in and
Right.
everything like that. My division, though, is very, very small in the grand scheme of things, mostly because each individual tech services such a large area. So like we don't have to have a ton of people for what I do in particular, but the company as a whole has decent sized operations.
Okay. Gotcha. And in your particular like day-to-day job, right? I mean, we were kind of joking before, like you're doing everything, right? You're
Yeah.
you're on the sales side, you're on the ops side, you're on the engineering side a bit, kind of talking. So like walk us through kind of your day by day, and then we'll kind of go back in time and figure out how you ended up here.
Yeah. So, I mean, day by day, it's kind of interesting because it's definitely one of those jobs. I mean, I think this is fairly prototypical with oil and gas where no day is truly the same. Like there might be the same actions, overall that happen, but like it's truly nothing is the same because no project that I'm on is the same. I've been, fortunate enough to be in this industry for quite a while now. And, while your job task can remain the same, it's completely different. Typical sales day is, kind of just driving around the Northeast, handing out donuts. A couple months back, I went out and actually made it a point to go to the work crews on location and deliver it to wireline crews, because I was like, man, I remember when I was, out here all the time and like nothing was better than when people brought us food. Like I don't, I don't think you can get better than that. You know what I mean? So I made sure to go out there and hit the field a couple times, but just going, especially because our company was here previously in completions and production and things like that, and they kind of moved out for a while, and now we're moving back in. So it's really just about getting in front of people, even if that means handing a folder to the secretary at the front desk, once every 3 months, and hoping it ends up on the right person's desk.
Yeah.
But it could be that. Some days I'm working in the shop, going through my tools. If I know I have a big project coming up or something like that, I'll go through, make sure I, get O-rings swapped out and check functionality of the tools and things like that. Some days I wish I was joking, but some days I literally sit at my shop and I wait for packages from UPS that seem to come right as we're getting ready to close for the day. You know,
Yeah.
it all depends. Some days I'm on a plane to Texas, going to do training or something like that. It's
Mhm.
very varied, which is something that I personally enjoy. If it gets too repetitive, too factory work, it's not really my style. I don't enjoy that too much.
Looking at the background out there, it looks like you might be out on location today. Are you
No,
sitting
no,
out on a
actually,
job
believe it or
somewhere?
not, that's just the drop ceiling in my basement.
Okay, okay, in the basement. I was gonna say, I mean, the width is looking like, with the width and the ceiling, looks like a lot of the trailers I've been in on location.
Yeah, it's actually it's a fairly accurate representation of that, but I live in a split level that was built in the '70s, and that was
I
the design style apparently, and I
I
haven't gotten
got you.
around to changing it yet.
I got you.
It works. Are you managing people, or is it kind of a team of one, or are you working in a team? Like what's your arrangement there? Hey guys, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Local Energy. Please remember to like and subscribe to us here on YouTube or Spotify, or check us out at localenergy.com. All right, back to the show.
So it's definitely a unique situation. I'll talk a little bit about how I got started with this role because I didn't
Yeah.
think I didn't even think that I was going to get this. This is so I went through a period of time where I had seen a video online or something like that, some TikTok or something, and it talked about making sure that you weren't the one to tell yourself no. It said let other people tell you no. Work on getting, facing rejection and everything like that because you don't know what kind of opportunities it could open up for you. My last company, well, it was a great company. I'm not gonna say it wasn't by any means, but I don't know if it was the best fit for me.
Hmm.
I had a lot of stuff going on in my life at the time. It was very hectic. And so I didn't know if it was the best thing for me. I was looking at other opportunities. And when I did, I saw the job for Expro pop up. And in the job, it pretty much said, you're going to be a team of one and you are going to start the division by yourself with extremely minimal help. To be a self starter, you have to be willing to, kind of grind and not have somebody watching you all the time, and I was like, man, chance to start a division, like that would look great on a resume. And then the next
Yeah.
thing I said to myself is, there's absolutely no chance these people are going to hire me for this role.
Yeah.
And then next thing I knew, I made it to the end and they're like, yeah, you're the candidate that we want to go with. We think you're going to do a great job. And I went, wow, that's great. Awesome. And I went home to my wife and I was like, I didn't think I'd get this far. What do I do now?
Yeah.
And it's been an adventure every day since then, pretty much.
That's got to be kind of stressful. I don't know. So building a business, right? I mean, you have to take ownership of this division you're building, right? And
For
so
sure.
there's a heightened level of responsibility, I'm sure, that comes with that. So when you got that offer, right, you're kind of like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to get it. I don't think I'm going to get it, but I'm going to see this all the way through. You get it. There had to be that kind of like, oh my gosh, like I actually got this job. Now what moment, right?
For sure. For
Was
sure.
there like kind of a moment of pause where you're like, did you ever ask yourself if you were going to be able to do it? Or was it like, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to do next. And you kind of had a plan or like maybe walk us through that kind of those next couple of days. What was the thought process like as you were getting ready for it?
I think it was a combination of everything that you said, right? Because I definitely had a plan. Like even so the interview process was multi-step, which you would expect from somebody who's going to be restarting an entire division,
Yeah.
isolated
Yeah.
geographically basically by themselves. And throughout those steps, like I remember, I think it was my second interview, like I was already detailing a possible marketing plan and everything to these guys and, like letting them know, like, listen, we could do this, like we could use this tactic and that tactic. And, we could throw this piece of merchandise and throw this at this people. And I know these people that are connected to this side of this and, and just kind of already scheming and already planning on what I could do in my head, but at the same time, not having. So I was a manager like way back in retail, like when I was a teenager,
Hmm.
but I had no oil field sales experience, no oil field management experience. I was a supervisor
Uh-huh.
previously of a generous size. I supervised crews up to 25 people at a time. There was definitely like some blind confidence there, I suppose, not really knowing what was next, but just being like, man, I'm going to tackle it. And this is an appropriate time to shout out my manager, John Davidson, because if it wasn't for him, I would have fell on my face so hard with this because there were times where I called him and I was like, JD, what do I do, man? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have no idea what to do at this juncture right now. And
Hmm.
he'd be like, man, my favorite expressions of his is like when it came to sales, like there were some days where I'd go out and just nothing stuck
Right.
that day. You know what I mean? And he'd go, Dale, you just got to keep throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, man. And I was
Yeah.
like, the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, you just got to keep throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And sure
Yeah.
enough, I
Yeah.
kept at it and, and I've seen some positive results. So it's nice
That's
to,
great.
nice to end up there after that.
That is great. Yeah, that interview process had to be pretty daunting. There's not a lot of new TV shows. Like I haven't seen Landman. I don't know if you guys are watching Landman, but I haven't. I watched the first
I
episode and
haven't.
I haven't watched any more of it, which probably makes me not really an oil and gas guy. But it reminds me kind of like of The Office. I don't know if you've seen The Office, but they're interviewing Michael Scott's replacement. And you got, Michael Scott, Warren Buffett shows up in the episode and he's like detailing his plan. And he's like, did you just trademark like your sex? Like, he's like, yeah, I just trademarked it. Like, you can't take that. Like, that's my idea, like, anyways, sorry. My office lore is shadowing through. So, well, how did you get into the industry? I looked at your LinkedIn briefly before. It looks like you have some wireline experience. You were a corrections officer at one point. Is that correct? correct? I don't know.
Yeah. So some people use it affectionately. Some people do not use the term affectionately. I am definitely what's known as Johnny Roughneck. I have been around the block. I have done lots of different jobs, and I've also had some bad luck that attributed to it as well. So it's funny that you told me, like, before we started rolling, you said that like high schoolers are a big demographic, which is funny because I knew nothing about this industry when I was in high school. I had no intentions to end up in
Right.
this industry. My dad, the way you're going to grow up, you're going to go to college and you're going to get a degree and that's going to be that. I didn't really know what I was going to do at that point. I had ideas, but I didn't have any concrete plans or anything like that. And I ran out of money after my first year of college and I went, well, this is an interesting predicament. What do I do now? And my now ex-wife at the time, I was dating her and living in New Jersey. She's like, well, got family in southwestern Pennsylvania. She goes, my cousin's an oilfield crane operator. He makes like $170,000 a year. Maybe you can go do something like that. And I went, that sounds awesome. I was like, sure, I'll go be a crane operator for 170 a year, and moved out to southwest Pennsylvania and was not ready to be a crane operator at all. I was 19 years old, didn't have a CDL. All the things. And he goes, how about you just apply for like regular oil and gas job openings? And I was like, I don't even know what I'm applying for, man. I was like, I could be applying for positions that require like 10 years of experience. He goes, if it sounds like an oil and gas position, just put an application on Indeed, get the interviews, and I will help you sort it out. And at the time, this was later 2014 when things were still booming pretty good
All
up
right.
here. And so, I mean, I
Yep.
had interviews one after another, and, he just I'd go to an interview, they'd give me an offer, and I'd go, hold on, I need to make a phone call. And I'd call him, and I'd be like, hey, what do I do now? Like, is this a good offer? And he'd be like, absolutely not, walk out the door. And I'd be like, I respectfully decline the offer. Thank you very much. And walk to the next one. And ironically, my first oil field job ended up consisting of 3 questions for the interview. And it was Frac Tech, FTS International. And they went, so you want to work here? And I said, yeah, I'd like to work here. Can you pass a drug test? I said, yeah, I can. I said, I don't do anything. I could pass a drug test all day long. They're like, fantastic. He paused for a second, looked at me again. He goes, do you really want to work here? And I was like, well, I mean, if you're questioning like that, I don't know if I should, but and the rest is history. And that's where I ended up getting my start. And I ended up leaving there after about 6 months. One of my first supervisors in oil and gas, his name was John Brady. He used to tell us all the time, because at the time we had new guys coming in every week. It was just a constant rotation. And he goes, man, every time you step on a location, it is like a big job fair out here. Talk to people, find out what they do. Maybe you'd like to do something like what they're doing instead of what you're doing now. And I really took that to heart, as well as the other piece of advice he gave, which is if you want to move up, train the person below you to do what you're doing so you can move up, which is not a popular sentiment in oil and gas. It is slowly
Right.
becoming a more popular sentiment, but I came in at a time when it was, why would I train you? You can possibly replace me or advance above me, and I don't want to do that. But those 2 pieces of advice he gave me were pretty critical to my oil and gas career. So I'm grateful for him for that. But I took that, man, it just snowballed from there. I left that job, ended up fueling light plants and generators for 3 weeks, and then they laid me off because they lost their contract. I went there to water transfer because it was the only thing hiring at the time. Was there for 9 months. They cut my pay while I was there because of the downturn and everything.
Right.
So I left for a better paying job. I was there for 2 months before they got rid of the manager who had hired me and decided they wanted to go in a different direction. And word came down through the rumor mill that they were going to get rid of anybody that was one of his preferred employees. And being that he hired me 2 months ago, I was one of those people. So I moved on from there and I went to go to a workover company, worked a couple jobs for them. And then they said, hey, we don't have the work we thought we were going to have. You're going to be sitting on the couch for a while. And I said, I don't like sitting on the couch, so I'm going to go over here and go do this. I was a drill and roustabout for a few months, and they actually, I kid you not, this is one of my craziest stories that I tell. I sat down in the office with the owner of that company, and he goes to me and he says, Dale, we like you. We like what you've done. The company men rave about you. I actually had 2 company men argue over whose shift I was going to be on because they enjoyed having me on location so much. And he goes, I want you to be the head of the division and I want you to start doing sales. He's going to give me the company truck, the laptop, the card, everything that everybody wants as far as an oil and gas position, right? I was like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity. Thank you. Walked out of that meeting with him, and an hour later, call came through that our customer was being acquired by another energy company, and that energy company had already passed down word, and they said, we have our own roustabout company that we're going to use. Your guys' services will no longer be needed as soon as the deal goes through. And
Wow.
So I went from there, bounced back to frac, realized I still did not enjoy that, and just like I did the first time, and I kind of bounced around from there, just going to different jobs, and then I found flowback, and I liked flowback probably better than anything else I've done besides wireline to
Hmm.
that point. And I was a contractor for a while, so I feel like that was a really good thing. I bounced around a good bit. I got to see different companies, different ways of doing things, and then I was with various flowback outfits as work ebbed and flowed. Some companies would gain
Hmm.
work, some would lose work, and as I stated, I don't like sitting on the couch. So when the work would get too slow for too long, I'd pack up and move to the next one. And then after that, I was at a company and I was sitting on a job which had gone absolutely horrible. It was supposed to be a 3.5 day job and it turned into a 3.5 week long job. While I was there, I saw a truck and big letters on the side with the company name. I was like, man, I don't know anything about wireline. Nothing. Like I was sitting there and I'm like, I mean, I know what they do, but like I don't know anything about it. I don't know about the job. I don't know about what these guys do on a day-to-day basis. It was really one of the things I realized I'd never been exposed to in the industry. So I went,
Right.
I asked the guy, I said, hey, tell me a little bit about what you do. He did. And I said, you guys get paid good? Like, what's the money like? And he told me what his pay was like. I said, I promise. It was the exact line from A Wolf of Wall Street. I said, you show me your pay stub for that. I said, and I will go put it in my resume right now. And he
Yeah,
pulled it
yeah.
up on his phone. And I said, hold on, I need to go borrow the company man's Wi-Fi and put in my application. And that's how I got into remedial wireline. And then from there, I ended up in this role a few years later. It's
So
been a wild ride for sure.
what'd you like so much about flowback? What was the part of that job that you really loved?
You know, I think it was multifaceted. I really like production. I've learned that as much as my experience is in completions, I've learned that I really, really enjoy production just because I feel like completions, when it's going correctly, like I stated, is almost like factory work. It's very
Right.
much, checklist item, checklist item, checklist item, job is complete. Whereas production is not that way. Production is unpredictable. Production can be influenced, production can be changed, it can be stopped. There's so many different factors. I mean, down to, like learning how the wells are. Like each one almost has like its own personality, as if you can personify it. And you can be like, with confidence, after a couple of weeks of watching a well and knowing what it's doing, you can say, this well is going to have a surge of water at 3 p.m. on Tuesday. And that well will have a surge of water at 3 p.m. on Tuesday because you learned the workings of the well. Or like I was able to figure out when wells were being frac hit when even the operators themselves didn't know that their wells were being frac hit. And I liked that it was a smaller group of people on location at one time. So you were able to foster really good relationships. One of my favorite company men of all time, Chad Patton, he and I would, we'd argue like stray cats sometimes, but at the same time, we'd also sit down and cook for each other. And, he'd always make us meals on the holidays and stuff like that when we were on location. And, when you're dealing with two guys, three guys, four guys on location at a time, you get really, really close, especially when you're spending,
Right.
weeks together and you're bouncing from location to location to location. And, there's easy days with it and there's ridiculously hard days where you're running for 12 hours a day, while you're on location. And I think those things are really what drew me into flowback. And then it's not all brute strength either. You have to use your brain, which is not the case with all oil field roles, I don't feel. But that's also what drew me to wireline. Not every day is the same. It can be challenging. You have to use your brain. You're with a small group of people pretty much all the time, and you got to think outside the box, with different things that you're doing.
Right.
Hmm. Gotcha. And then when you got into wireline, I mean, it's kind of the same question. Was there a particular part of that you enjoyed the most? I mean, I know because even that job's pretty diverse. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like you're doing the same thing every day. Was there a part of that job that maybe you enjoyed more than others?
Sounds like the pay was better to start.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. At the company that I was at, the pay was better, which for
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
was nice. I think honestly, and this could be a sentiment that is for sure not shared by everyone, but the work-life balance with Wireline was so much nicer because it's called day work or remedial wireline. So it's not the same as like plug and perf, like when they're on the frac sites and
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
strictly doing, gun run, plug, and, rinse repeat type deal. But we would do tubing plugs. we'd do cuts, casing cuts, cement bond logs, we'd hoist cameras, we hoisted gyros. There was so much that could change from day to day. It not only made it interesting because you got to learn and see so many different areas. I mean, we were on pads from when there was a drilling rig on site all the way to P&A, you know what I mean, all the way past post production. So it was so varied, and you learn so much by being exposed to so many different sides of things. Not to mention, wireline is unique in that most other jobs in oil and gas, you're just looking at the results of whatever happens, right? Like, with frac, you can see pressure spikes. And so you know whether the well is taking sand or it's not taking sand. With flowback, whether the well's producing, if it's not producing, how much water. But with wireline, you get to see the nitty gritty details, man. Like, that's one of my favorite things about what I do now with running cameras. Like, you actually get to look in there. I can't tell you how many times when I was breaking out in this industry, I'd be sitting there like, man, I wish that I wish they could make like clear casing, you know what I mean? And like dig down like thousands of feet just to be able to see what's going on. And then I found out that cameras were a thing, and now I run them, you know what I mean? And I think that's a kind of a really cool story arc, but I was just always fascinated by like what's going on. I mean, with cement bond logs, you can see how well the cement's set up, alongside the casing. The cameras, you can see if a perf is clogged or if there's a separation in your, tubing hanger. Like, there's so many different things going on, and it varies so much from well to well that you get to see parts of these wells that most people, only, either if they're not a nerd like me, I guess, don't think about ever, or don't think about very much.
How difficult is, I mean, that the technical side of that, right? I mean, it's not like you studied this through high school and then college, right? You kind of like learning this on the job. How difficult is it to learn that as someone that might be new to the industry coming into it? Is it like, okay, this is going to take you 10 years, or you're going to pick up the basics in the first 2, and then you're going to be proficient by year 5? What does that kind of look like? There's no books on it either, from what I can tell. It's like you're going to courses and training on this more than anything else.
Yeah.
Classrooms.
There is a school down in Texas, I believe. I'm pretty sure it's called Top Gun, where
we
know
that's right. You guys interviewed it, right?
Russell's a good dude.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Top Gun, they do have wireline training. To my knowledge, that is really about the only formal wireline training that there is. If there's other things, I haven't heard of them. So my last supervisor, Ricky Lukasik, he told me, he was like, what I've noticed with wireline is when people do it for a period of time, you notice the moment when it clicks. And it's really, really difficult until that moment when it clicks. And once it clicks, and you can see that like the light bulb goes off for someone, and they're like, I see, like whether it's rebuilding a Baker 20, or, you're talking about analyzing a pattern on a cement bond log, or looking at images from a camera, there is that aha moment where like it all kind of starts to come together, and all the pieces that you've been working on building just kind of form together, and you really start to get the idea of what you're doing. And I think that's really it. I think you kind of just have to learn it slowly over time and piece it together. I do think that my extremely varied background helps a lot. And it has helped me a lot throughout the course of my career, which is why I do not regret having to job hop the way I do, just because I'm so aware of everyone else's job on site and not just my own. And I view that as a strength,
Yeah.
Definitely.
What's kind of going into end of 25, beginning of 26, what's activity been up kind of your way? It sounds like from everyone I've talked to, I mean, you guys, it's been busy up your way.
I wouldn't say busy. I would say consistent. It's very, nobody's like going out of their way to drill extra, but nobody's like really pulling back and being like, hey, we're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
I've had some engineers tell me, that they're going to push projects that they called me for until, 2026 and things like that, till they get fresh budgets and everything. But I'd say it's pretty consistent right now, which makes it interesting when you're talking about trying to, restart a division up here, because in a flat market, everybody kind of just wants to stick with the status quo, doesn't want to use new vendors and whatnot, which the ones who have called me makes me appreciate them even more, because they're willing to take that chance.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be interested to see what the gas prices, what this kind of drop we've been seeing lately does to activity. Seems like over the last month or two, we've seen about a 20% decrease in the price, and it continues to go down. So I'm wondering kind of where a floor is right now. Hopefully we level off again and everybody gets happy.
Well, and I mean, we're recording this a couple, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks early before release, but I mean, you got this whole thing with Venezuela and these, it's like, but I don't know, like what is these oil, like, it seems like there's a lot of politics around this stuff too that can get tricky too with oil.
Always.
And what is, I don't know. So, well, I guess we'll find out here. We'll know what's really happening when we release this, right? But
For sure.
it'll be fascinating to see. We've typically in the past, we've always released the episode like the day after. So that's been fun, but now we finally like have some time to edit, which has been good too. So anyways, new stuff for 26. Me and Wade are excited for this year. We're gonna see how much fun we can have
For sure.
doing this. So great. Well, a couple things. One thing I got to ask everybody that comes on the show, but what's your favorite energy drink?
Oh, I mean, right now, I'm drinking my wife's Alani's because I'm out of my preference. In stereotypical field
No.
operations guy,
White
it's gonna be
Monster.
White Monster.
God, I know, 100%.
Absolutely.
I think that's like that is like universal though. I think the White Monster is the most popular monster. I mean, even in any sales industry, like insurance, I don't care what it is, everyone wants the White Monster. That's the thing.
I
don't
held
know.
out for the longest time, and I was a Red Bull guy for years.
Yeah.
And then, like, I actually started dieting, like, earlier this year, and
Got
so
healthy. That's
I
good.
tried to stay away from, like, 0-calorie stuff for the longest time just because I didn't really care for the artificial sugar taste and whatnot,
Right.
and so I was like, "Man, every guy I've ever seen on location has one of these," you know what I mean? Like, there's gotta be
Yeah.
decent, and I picked one up, and I drank it, and I went, "Oh my god, my life has changed forever."
There's
Yeah.
so much more caffeine in the Monsters than there is in the Red Bulls too. I mean, Red
For
Bulls,
sure.
there's like, what is it, 80 milligrams, something like that for a 12-ounce can. I mean,
Something,
we're
yeah.
talking 200 milligrams in Monsters.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like 2 coffees.
Yeah, it's great.
Do they still do the Arnold Palmer monsters? Like the lemonade tea ones? I don't know if I don't
Oh,
drink
they had
Monsters
those.
in
They
a
had those
while.
rehab Monsters that had
Oh,
like juice
they were
in them
good
and
back
all
in
that
the
stuff.
day.
Yeah,
Yep.
they taste
Yeah.
amazing. But they also had
Yeah.
calories. That was one of those, like, I tried not to drink calories when possible.
This was like back in my 20s when it didn't matter. It was like you
Okay.
just wake up and just go. But
That
and
was
you
the
didn't even
hangover
drink it.
period. I mean, it said rehab on
Yeah,
it.
it was never good for us to begin with. It's all right. All right. My last question for you, Dale, and then I'll let you go. But is there anything in the oil and gas industry that maybe we're not talking about that we should be talking about? Maybe something on your radar that maybe you're just not seeing being discussed?
I think, and I wouldn't say it's not being discussed. Like I said, the landscape of oil and gas is changing, especially as like more and more millennials, I feel like get into the positions. I'm noticing the change. I'm seeing the change, but I feel like the best parts of the old school culture kind of have been preserved, with elements of, the way that millennials like to operate and do things. And I think it's a willingness to change. I really think that's the biggest thing. And like I said, it's being talked about a little bit, but whether that's changing vendors, changing ideas, getting away from, well, this has worked for 40 years, so why won't it work now when you're talking
Right.
about things that are completely different than the way it used to be. I mean, in my region specifically, super laterals is one of the big things now. Everybody's drilling them. You're going deeper and deeper, and that it changes the dynamics of how you're doing everything. I mean, even when you talk about it from like a flowback perspective, on a typical old Marcellus well back that was drilled in the Twins, you're looking at maybe an hour or two from TD to surface when you're talking about, getting something from bottom up top.
Mhm.
Now you're talking about like 5 to 6 hours before whatever goes to bottom comes back to surface just because of depth. So when you're talking about depths like that, you can't operate the same way. And I think that's one of the big things that I've started to see a transition of is these companies being more open to ideas, being more open to, new possibilities and things like that, new technologies, new vendors, just to try to enhance the production and enhance their capabilities and well management in any way possible. And I mean, that goes for everything from, tractors to cameras to even so much as what plungers they're using, on production and things like that. So I think that's definitely one of the big things that I'm noticing a shift in is just willingness to be open to trying new stuff.
Love it. Well, Dale, thank you for your time. We'll get back to what we're doing, but I hope you have a great 2026, and we'll be in touch with you guys. So thank you, Wade, for being here. Thank you, Dale. We'll see you guys again next week on Local Energy.
Absolutely.